Chapter 558 Awakening. When a person gains a superpower, it is as if an arm or a finger grows on their body. It appears out of nowhere, and the superhuman knows their superpower as well as their own body, knowing exactly how it works. With Zhang Yihe and Yang Xinxin looking on expectantly, Lu Karen explained her ability. She took a spoon from the table and, in front of the two people, bent it quickly without using any physical force. My ability is related to metal and machinery. It seems that I can control the metal that my body touches. Lu Karen's eyes shone with excitement as she clenched her fists and said excitedly, "This is great. With this ability, I will be able to create many powerful weapons in the future." Zhang Yi rested his chin in his hands and asked in a low voice, "In other words, your ability is related to mechanics. Can you improve the performance of weapons?" Lu Karen answered without hesitation, "Of course I can." She looked at the spoon in her hand and said with a smile, "With this ability, I can perfectly control every detail of the weapon. Adjust the weapon to its optimal performance. Not just weapons, but all mechanical creations in my hands will be transformed into their most perfect form." Zhang Yi laughed and said, "That's good. Your ability doesn't deviate from your role as a mechanic. Go back and strengthen all those firearms for me." "Okay. I promise to complete the task." Lu Karen smiled, his face full of uncontrollable excitement. "By the way, boss, you should name my superpower," Lu Karen suddenly said. Zhang Yi laughed and said, "This is your own ability, so you should name it yourself, right?" Who knew that Lu Karen looked at Zhang Yi very seriously and said solemnly, "My life was saved by you, boss, and you gave me my superpower. So I want you to name my superpower." Zhang Yi understood. Lu Karen was expressing her gratitude and loyalty to him. He nodded and, after thinking about it for a while, said, "Since your ability is to manipulate machinery, how about you call it God of Machinery?" Lu Karen liked the name very much, her eyes sparkling as she kept repeating it. Divine Machine Control, Divine Machine Control, what a great name. From now on, I'll also be a person with special abilities. Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin looked at Lu Karen with smiles on their faces. The two of them were already thinking about how to bring Lu Karen's special abilities into full play. At that moment, Zhoukur also returned to normal. However, she was sweating even more than Lu Karen, so that she was drenched, and her skin was glowing with a smooth sheen. Zhang Yi wondered if it was an illusion, but she felt that her skin was even more white and tender than before, and her already attractive body had even more charming proportions. Zhoukur blushed slightly when Zhang Yi stared at her like that. "Why are you staring at me like that? Do I look good?" Zhang Yi couldn't help but nod and smile. "Yes, you've always looked good." Yang Xinxin and Lu Karen next to her looked jealous. Zhoukur was also embarrassed to be spreading the word of love in front of her two younger sisters. She sat up with her slender body. "Has Karen succeeded? What is your superpower?" Lu Karen honestly explained her superpower. Zhoukur laughed upon hearing this and said, "Divine Manipulation? That's really a very useful superpower, very befitting of you. So what's your superpower, Kur?" Lu Karen asked curiously. Zhoukur calmly explained, "My superpower is related to medical skills." She explained her abilities to the others without reservation. "My ability, for one, can accelerate the activity of my own cells, allowing them to repair and regenerate quickly. This ability can not only be used on myself, but also on other people." Hearing this, everyone finally understood why Zhoukur's body had become even more perfect. Yang Xinxin and Lu Karen were really a little jealous, because this ability is something every woman longs to have. As long as Zhoukur is willing, she can freely transform the proportions of her body and become a truly devilish figure. "Another aspect is these hands of mine," she said, holding out her long, white hands. They were the hands of a surgeon, clean, white and steady. These hands can heal the pathologies of others, and they can even replace the scalpel in performing surgery on the human body. Zhoukur said, slowly walking up to Yang Xinxin. Yang Xinxin looked at her in surprise. "Kur, what are you going to do?" Zhoukur smiled and crouched down. "I want to try to cure your leg." Before Yang Xinxin could object, Zhou Kur suddenly extended her hands. Under the gaze of everyone, those hands suddenly became transparent. Then, they slowly disappeared into Yang Xinxin's legs. They slowly climbed from Yang Xinxin's legs all the way to her spinal cord. Yang Xinxin could feel something stirring inside her body, but the feeling did not make her feel any pain. Instead, it felt like something was being removed from her body. Soon after, Zhou Kur's hands were removed from Yang Xinxin's spine. What followed was a large, gray-black mass of mucus. Zhou Kur cleaned the filth from her hands while saying to Yang Xinxin, "Xinxin, you can try to stand up." Ripples suddenly stirred in Yang Xinxin's pupils. After years of paralysis, her greatest desire was to have a pair of healthy legs so that she could walk like a normal person. Zhang Yi couldn't help but look at Zhou Kur and then at Yang Xinxin. Was this the legendary medical miracle? If Zhou Kur can even cure paralysis, I'm afraid there's no surgical injury she can't cure. This ability is simply too powerful. Lu Karen hurriedly came to Yang Xinxin's side and looked at her with encouraging eyes. "Xinxin, give it a try." With that, she reached out and held Yang Xinxin's arm. Yang Xinxin nervously looked at her legs, and then, not very skillfully, began to exert force. Her legs, which had not felt anything for many years, suddenly generated a strength. Supporting her body, slowly got up from the wheelchair. "Yeah! I'm standing up, I'm standing up. I can feel them." The girl let out a shout of extreme surprise, completely losing the appearance of the past intelligent but sickly girl. With Lu Karen's support, she walked forward step by step and quickly got used to walking. Yang Xinxin's eyes were teary, and she smiled and shed tears. She quickly pounced over to the side. Zhou Kur had a smile on her face and reached out to catch her. But Yang Xinxin unexpectedly passed her by and instead dove into Zhang Yi's arms. "Brother, I can stand up now. I'm a normal girl now." Zhang Yi looked at the embarrassed Zhou Kur and felt like smiling. "Well, that's great. From now on, you'll be able to walk on your own two legs." Chapter 559, Replicating the Origin Bomb. After Yang Xinxin's legs healed, she was as happy as a fluttering butterfly, running all over the shelter for the first time in history to convey the good news of her healed legs to everyone in the shelter. Even Su the fat man, who she usually disliked the most, was not left out. After everyone learned that Yang Xinxin's legs had healed, they all happily congratulated her. In particular, after learning that Zhou Kur and Lu Karen had awakened their psychic powers, they were even more impressed that there were even more talents in the asylum. Only Zhou Haimei remained an ordinary person. But she was very sensible, knew her position, and had no complaints in her heart. She was a smart woman, and unlike young girls, she didn't crave psychic powers. Being a housewife meant that she didn't have to go out and fight, and she could enjoy a comfortable life at home. Wasn't that pretty good? Zhang Yi needed her to be a spiritual therapist to comfort Uncle Yu, an old man's lonely heart. She also did her job very well. And because of her presence, the atmosphere in the entire shelter has also become better, which is the ability of mature and intellectual women to activate the atmosphere. On the other hand, Zhang Yi was very happy to see Yang Xinxin's leg get better. He couldn't help but feel in his heart that supernormal abilities are indeed very convenient and can do things that humans could not do in the past. Is this a kind of species evolution? Although it has caused the death of the vast majority of people on the planet, the remaining people, as the spark, will become an even stronger and better species. "I think I seem to have grasped the law of evolution," Zhang Yi said lightly as he leaned against the door, looking at Yang Xinxin running around on the first floor. Zhou Kur and Lu Karen were lying on the railing on the second floor. Hearing Zhang Yi say this, they couldn't help but cast curious glances. Zhang Yi said, "In the past, I always felt that everyone's superpowers were related to their personalities. Now that I've seen the changes in both of you, I've finally confirmed this." Zhang Yi looked up at Zhou Kur and Lu Karen. He said, "Kur is a doctor, so the ability you've awakened is healing. Karan is a mechanic, and the ability you've awakened is related to machinery. So, can I understand that this awakening of abilities is closely related to your own abilities?" Or is it the power you want to obtain within you? Even, the stronger this desire is, the more powerful the superpower obtained will be. The two couldn't help but ponder after hearing Zhang Yi say this. Shoukur said, "It seems that this is indeed the case. Uncle Yu's awakening was caused by a gunshot, so he wanted to obtain a stronger physique, so his superpower is to strengthen his physique. Su Chunlei awakened his ability on the verge of freezing to death, and he hopes that he can withstand the cold. Teacher Liang, as a martial arts enthusiast, hopes to gain faster speed and greater strength. Now that I think about it, indeed, everyone's mutation is related to their desires." Lu Karen heard this and couldn't help but look at Zhang Yi. "So, big brother, you awakened a spatial ability, and what is the reason for that? Is it because you work as a warehouse manager?" Zhang Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. What did he want most? It was the incredibly strong resentment after death that allowed him to be reborn. Because he had suffered so much from the scarcity of supplies in the end times, it had allowed him to awaken the spatial ability, so that he could hoard goods? Then was his rebirth also a kind of power? Zhang Yi subconsciously raised his hand and rubbed his left eye. This is indeed an interesting idea. We must gain a better understanding of our abilities and then do our best to develop them. Only in this way can we survive better in the end times. Zhang Yi lowered his left hand, smiled, and waved to Lu Karen. "Karen, come over for a moment. Just in time to have an opportunity to verify the strength of your abilities." Lu Karen ran up to Zhang Yi and looked at him expectantly. She also hoped to be able to do more for Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi opened the alternate space and slowly took out a dark bullet from inside and handed it to Lu Karen. "Now with your abilities, can you replicate the origin bomb?" The origin bomb is a product of the Jiangnan Regional Headquarters. Even in the Jiangnan Regional Headquarters, it is also a controlled-level ammunition, and only members of special units such as the investigation team are eligible to use it. Its production process is extremely complicated, and the materials are also very rare. Ordinary armories cannot make them. It is said that this is a special department of the Jiangnan region that was created specifically to deal with aliens, and the quantity is limited. When dealing with Yuan Kongya at the beginning, Zhang Yi got Bian Zhenghu's pistol. Although he later returned the gun, he secretly hid one of the origin bullets. Because this type of bullet has the effect of restraining supernormal abilities, even a strong one like Epsilon-level Yuan Kongya, her mental energy shield will be pierced by the origin bullet. Zhang Yi had long since set his sights on this special ammunition. Unfortunately, Bai Li Changqing and the others would not be kind enough to share some with Zhang Yi. At this time, Lu Karen awakened her psychic powers. With her mechanical skills and the ability to operate the divine machine, Zhang Yi wanted her to try to replicate the origin bullet. If successful, the combat effectiveness of their entire team would increase by several notches. Even people without psychic powers could threaten aliens with the origin bullet. Not to mention that Zhang Yi is a top-notch sniper himself, and this thing will give him the biggest boost. Lu Karen reached out and took the origin bullet. The moment her fingers touched it, her brain quickly analyzed its material composition. A moment later, she frowned slightly and said to Zhang Yi, "This bullet is very special, with 12 rare metals used in it. I'm afraid the cost of just one bullet is no less than 100,000 yuan. Rare metals? No wonder," Zhang Yi said. "What do you think, can you replicate it?" Lu Karen's mouth curled up slightly, a smile of pride. "In the past, with our production environment, it would have been impossible. But now, absolutely no problem. It's just that the materials are a bit difficult. After all, rare metals are hard to find. I'm afraid I'll have to go to one of the few laboratories in Tianhai City, or a university research center." Zhang Yi smiled happily. "As long as it can be created, that's fine. The material aspect is not a problem at all. Make a list for me of what materials you need, and I'll have Xing Tian and Xiaohong practice and help me find them." Rare metals have many uses, and they would not suspect that Zhang Yi wanted to use them to create the origin bomb. Then again, even if they knew, so what? Even Jiangnan region could not be domineering enough to forbid others from producing the origin bomb themselves, could they? At least the Jiangnan region doesn't have that kind of control right now. Okay, I'll send it to you right away. Liu Karen immediately took out the satellite phone and made a list of the special materials needed for the origin bomb. Zhang Yi added many other rare substances to it and made a list, which was sent to the three forces. They were asked to help collect as many as possible. Tianhai City used to be economically prosperous, and there were many scientific laboratories and top universities. Therefore, collecting a sufficient amount of rare metals was not a problem. After receiving Zhang Yi's message, the three factions were unable to analyze anything based on the list. They were very happy that Zhang Yi finally let them do something. Because only Zhang Yi let them do things, this was a show of treating them as part of the family. It goes without saying that the three factions went off to collect these materials.